The little YouTube videos I had you watch show a bunch about the beginnings of the actual Greek physical theater, but I'd like to point out just a couple of things. The oldest theater that we know of is the Theater of Dionysus, which is carved into the hillside next to the Acropolis in Athens. This is where the big Dionysian festival was held. It's not well preserved. There's actually a Roman theater about 100 yards away that is in much better shape. All Greek theaters had an area called the orchestra. You may want to refer to the diagram of the Theater of Epidaurus on page 37 in your textbook. The Theater at Epidaurus is one of the best preserved ancient Greek theaters that is still in existence. You know it's an ancient Greek theater, one that wasn't renovated into a Roman theater, because the orchestra is circular. Later on, the orchestra became sort of horseshoe-shaped, and the Romans then cut them off and made them half circles or a semicircle. I've been fortunate enough to have traveled around Greece twice, and there are so many little theaters in so many places that many of them are unexcavated. If you are ever in Greece, and you run into one of the theaters in your wanderings, you will know it was a Greek theater and never renovated by the Romans if the orchestra is round. Now, behind the orchestra is the Scaena. When Greek theater started, this was the area where the actors would do costume changes. It was made out of wood then and leather or wooden cloth. It became more and more developed as time went on. It was fully stone by the time the Romans take over, and by the time the Romans are done with it, the Scaena became a very elaborate structure, 3 or 4 stories tall, with columns and statues. They're really quite amazing. And there are many, many examples of these all over Greece, Italy, and all of the territory held by the Roman Empire. The longer an area was in Roman possession, the greater likelihood that they built a theater there. Nearly all of the terms to describe a Greek theater are still used in some way today, although the meanings have changed. The term orchestra is still used today. In New York, if you have orchestra seats for a show, it means you are sitting on the main floor of the auditorium. The term logion became another seating area, the loge, which is another term for the mezzanine, which is the lowest balcony seating. Many sports arenas also have loge seating. Proscena or proscenium became the proscenium arch in modern theater. Scaena becomes scenery and scene. The word theater itself is from the Greek word theatron, meaning seeing place. Theatron becomes theater. We still use the Latin word as well, in this instance auditorium. In auditorium you can hear the word auditory. Auditorium is from the Latin meaning hearing place. Theatron and auditorium will be words that you'll be tested on eventually. As I said earlier, the best preserved ancient Greek theater is the theater at Epidaurus. I've been there. The acoustics in it are unbelievable. It's very large, thought to have sat between 12,000 and 14,000 people. There's a little stone down in the middle of the orchestra called the altar stone. And if you drop a decent-sized European coin on that, you can hear it all the way to the top row. Acoustically, it is nearly perfect. I will include a link to the theater itself in the lesson, and I encourage you to go out and take a look at it. On the site, if you have QuickTime on your computer, you can also get a 360-degree view of the theater by dragging a picture around. Now, the actors in Greek theater wore masks. The masks were thought to have a megaphone-type effect on the actors' voices. And depending on whether the show was a tragedy, comedy, or satyr play, their masks were representative of real people, comically done, or grotesquely done. We have most of our best knowledge of what the Greek actors looked like by the representations on pots and pottery. While some masks and mask pieces survived, we rely on the pottery artwork for much of our knowledge. The problem is that our best knowledge is from the latter period of Greek theater, and most of our best examples of Greek plays are from the earlier period of Greek theater. So we have a good idea what the theaters looked like, and what the masks looked like, and what the scenery looked like near the end of Greek theater, but not what it all looked like when the Greek tragedies were written. Now, they did come up with some very clever ways to indicate location. One was by using something called a periaktoi, and I'm still on page 37 in your book. A periaktoi was a triangle of panels that spun around. On each face of the triangle was a different location painted there. They also had these great cranes called the machina or machina. There's a term in fiction called deus ex machina, literally God from the machine or God of the machine. This is a plot device that is used near the end of a piece of fiction. It means the God would be lowered in and solve what seems to be an insolvable problem. Now, it sounds rather ridiculous. However, that's exactly what happens at the end of The Wizard of Oz. A godlike creature floats in and solves an insurmountable problem. If you've never seen The Wizard of Oz, I question what the world is coming to. And I think that's all I have to say on Greek theater.